I'm Pastor George Borghardt, and this is another Higher Things video short. Dinosaurs! That's the subject of today's Higher Things video short. You know, and my hands are too small. Dinosaurs! Big, giant monsters. Scary reptiles. Where do they come from? Well, in God's creation, I would look for them in day 5 or 6. I would look for them before the creation of men. But not extinct before the creation of men, because there's no death before the fall of Adam. And so they must have coexisted at the same time. Where did they go? Well, it seems that they could have been destroyed by the flood or some other catastrophic event, which the scriptures don't say. But a world flood, all that water pushing down on the earth would explain a lot of things when it comes to fossils and why it looks like sometimes with the fossils that the animals are basically sort of dead in their tracks. Either way, if I sort of sound like I don't know specific history about the dinosaurs, nobody really knows specific history about the dinosaurs. And so my conjecture flowing from the scriptures is just as good as anyone else. Carbon dating, not really reliable. You could carbon date your recently dead pet and it would show up to be, possibly 300 million years old. So I wouldn't put a lot of faith in that. And nobody was actually there, which makes all of this being based on Genesis 1 and 2 and 3 with the fall and 6 with the flood, sort of conjecture. It seems like big giant monsters do show up in Job and in other parts of the scriptures, the behemoth, the Leviathan, sea monsters. But again, we're still not on solid ground. I prefer to look at creation backwards, from the resurrection of Christ. You see, I can prove Easter. I can prove to you that Christ rose from the dead based on the evidence and the eyewitnesses and the life-changing events that occurred. And so if the guy on Good Friday died and rose again, well, everything he said about creation happened, which means male and female. God created them, which brings us back to Genesis and gives weight to the Genesis account. It also gives weight to the flood account, as well as the Lord and Jonah and a lot of things that the Lord made reference to. And so work backwards. See, your salvation rests on the death and resurrection of Christ, not on what happened to any specific animal. Personally, I believe that dinosaurs were not extinct as soon as people thought they were, and that possibly some of these dragons and stuff that people make reference to in the Middle Ages could have been leftover dinosaurs. But again, that's just my conjecture. Prove me wrong. But what you won't prove wrong is the death and resurrection of Christ. The one who died on Good Friday rose again from the dead, and he is the one who points us to the shining center of creation, which is the creation of man and woman, their fall, and his redeeming of us all. And so no one can tell you specifically what happened with anything in creation. And so Genesis sort of gives a sweep over, as almost a sort of as if speaking to children, things that crawl, and one big light in the sky, and one little light to govern the night, and all the stars, and the animals that creep, and things that fly, and things that swim. Not really scientific, because that's not really what it's about. Evolution isn't really on the radar for Genesis. It's about man and the creation of man and the redeeming of man, the fall of man, and then the redeeming of man. So dinosaurs, 5 and 6, Genesis 1 and 2, Job, other places they appear. Their death caused by the fall, and possibly the flood. Could they have been on the ark? Yes. All sorts of animals were on the ark. Kinds, not species. But all of this, not as important as first, the death and resurrection of Christ. And then you can work backwards. The one who redeemed you and saved you is the one who created everything, including the giant, scary monsters or dinosaurs. I'm Pastor George Borghardt, and this is another Higher Things video short.